The load and save functions are used very similarly. The load function is used as another way to get data into your workspace. So it's some data that's stored in your current folder in a file. The save function is used to save data from your workspace. So you can save it to a file. You can save it to a specific kind of file. For both load and save, we're really talking about Ascii files, which are txt files, dat files. These are opened and edited in a program like Notepad, Notepad++. If you are on a Mac, it might be TextEdit. But these are very small, basic files that are used essentially for our purpose to store numbers. And specifically, numbers as arrays. So a square set of numbers that's stored in a file. It's also like a CSV file or a spreadsheet. It's just very, very basic. There's not a lot of that additional stuff on top of the file to identify how to open it or what information it contains. Okay, so very basic Ascii files. We can also work with mat files. These are specific files for MATLAB. So there's limited utility for these files because they're only accessible and opened with MATLAB. So if we want to load in some data, we can do this. We just say load filename dot extension. So this would be, once again, txt, dat. That's one of the ways we can use load. It will load in the data and save it as a variable or in a variable with the same name as the file. If we want to load in a .mat file, we just say filename.mat. It's just an MAT. If we are loading in a file name with a .mat, we can load in specific variables. So if you have that data, you can use the variable, but that's not usually as usable because you need to know exactly what's in the .mat file. Once again, your data needs to be in a rectangle of numbers. The save function, very similar use. You would just say save filename.ext. In this case, it needs to be a .mat file. And this will save all of your variables to a single file. All of the variables in your workspace. If you want to save specific variables, you would say filename.mat followed by the variables that you want to save. We can also save a single variable to an Ascii file, which is very commonly done. So here's a single variable with all your data in one array. Typically, this is by concatenating. So you concatenate all results into a single file. And then you can just say save filename.ext. In this instance, it would be a .txt or dat. And you can save that single variable. Note, you need to have this option here, Ascii, that indicates that you're saving it to a .txt file or a .dat file. Otherwise, if you leave that off, you will not be able to open up your files in Notepad or TextEdit, and it will not work appropriately. So here's another way that we can get data into our workspace from an external source using load. And we can also save our data so that we can send it to somebody else. We don't need to send them the code if we just want to send them the numbers using the save function.